The year I married Wenqing, he had a mistress whom he had kept for 5 years and a 4-year-old child. 3 years after marriage, I respected my parents-in-law and took care of all the big and small affairs in the house. But Wenqing always treated me coldly and even ignored my objections and promoted the concubine to be his equal wife. Later, just because of a slander from the mistress, he believed it to be true and wanted to remove me from my position as mistress of the house. Even his mother, who used to be so kind to me, said that I was fierce, jealous, and ignorant. In the end, I became completely disillusioned with the mother and son, and I personally wrote a letter of divorce to the Queen Mother. A few days after I left home, he and his mother frequently came to my house, wanting to take me back. But they didn't know that I had already accepted someone else's marriage proposal. 01. For some reason, when Wenqing came to my room on her own initiative that day. He stood with his hands behind his back and said in a deep voice, "I came here today to discuss something with you." I poured him a cup of hot tea. "What's the matter?" "I want to make Chu my second wife." As he finished speaking, my hand ached and the tea in the cup overflowed, with a few drops spilling out. I put down the teapot and looked up at Wenqing. He was born handsome, with eyes and eyebrows that were stunning. When he looks at you, you mistakenly think that he is affectionate. In just a moment, I understood the real purpose of his coming here today and pretending to be close to me. It turned out that he wanted to make his concubine, who he had kept outside the mansion for several years, his second wife. My eyes suddenly turned red, and even my voice became a little colder. "I don't agree." Wenqing frowned. "She won't affect your status in the mansion. I will find a side courtyard for her, even if she doesn't live in the mansion." No matter how hard I usually try to act respectful and virtuous at home, I can't keep myself calm now. I threw the teacup in anger. "Who is she? She is not even a concubine." "You." Wenqing's face turned cold, and even her eyes became a little harsher. Chu has been with me since she was a child, not seeking a name, and even breaking up with her parents. I don't know how much grievance and contempt she has suffered over the years. Now that my son Yu is old enough to go to school, I will not let him be called a bastard just because his mother has no status. As the head of the family, you must be tolerant. If I had known you were so jealous and fierce, I would not have married you even if I had disobeyed my order. After saying these words, he angrily threw his sleeves and left. I tilted my head back and forced back the tears in my eyes.
02.
The next day, Wenqing's mother came to look for me. She took my hand lovingly and said, "Did that idiot quarrel with you yesterday?" I lowered my head, my eyes red with grievance. Mrs. Wen hurried to wipe my tears. "Oh, my son, you make your mother so sad to see you like this." I forced a smile and said, "Mother, my husband wants to make that mistress his equal wife." Madam Wen sighed lightly. "I heard about this." I stood up, lifted my skirt, and knelt down. "Mother, for the sake of the child, I can agree to take Uyghur back and raise him under my name. In the future, he can be regarded as the eldest son of the Marquis's mansion, and his future will not be hindered. But a daughter of the Liang family will never share a husband with anyone. I didn't know about my husband's mistress before, and after I got married, I had to turn a blind eye to it. Now I don't want to become a laughingstock among the people in Beijing. So please, Mother, please make the decision for me." Madam Wen hurriedly helped me up. "My son, Mother doesn't know the pain in your heart. She has asked you to work hard over the years to keep this house in order. But Zhang Chu is pregnant again, and Uyghur is getting older. The child is innocent after all. This is the blood of the Wen family. The Wen family cannot deny it." I was stunned for a moment. "Pregnant again? Didn't Mr. Wen tell you?" I shook my head stupidly. "How many months?" Madam Wen picked up the spoon and stirred the bird's nest in the bowl. "It's been 3 months." I clenched my teeth, but the courage and strength to speak were gone. 3 months ago, it was my birthday. That day, I asked the kitchen to prepare the dishes that Wenqing liked early in the morning, but he did not come back until he left the court. I asked someone to inquire about him, and he just said that he was busy with official duties and slept in the Hanlin Pavilion in the palace. I believed it and even prepared a food box to go see him the next day, but I was stopped by old Madam Wen. It is said that it is inconvenient for female relatives to enter the palace. Now it seems that their whole family is busy covering up for the child born to Wen Qing and Zhang Chuchu. Yes, no matter how well Madam Wen treated me in the past, she is a member of the Wen family after all, so she will naturally side with her own family. What's more, I haven't had a child in all these years. No matter how kind she treats me on the surface, she is still dissatisfied in her heart. 03. Less than half a month later, Zhang Chuchu came in. She was carried in through the main entrance in a large red sedan chair. The commotion was not much smaller than when I got married. I guess Wen Qing was afraid that she would be wronged, so she saved the situation for her. Outside the palace, there were loud drums and firecrackers. I suddenly felt dazed. I fell in love with her at first sight at the Lantern Festival that year, but now everything has faded away. I have been married to Wen Qing for 3 years. As soon as Zhang Chuchu entered the room, she knelt down in front of me. "Thank you for your kindness, sister, for allowing me and my child to enter the mansion. I will definitely serve you and mother well in the future to repay your kindness." As she spoke, she pulled the child beside her and said, "Kneel down quickly, Yujier, and greet your mother." The little man, who was just above the knee, looked at me with a frown and said contemptuously, "I don't call her mother. I only have one mother, Anyang." Zhang Chuchu pretended to be frightened and immediately pulled Wenyu over and spanked him on the butt several times. "How dare you say such things to your sister, you idiot. We will have to rely on the madam to survive in the future. Kneel down." Wenyu curled his lips and burst into tears. His loud voice almost blew the roof off. I rubbed my brows in annoyance, knowing that she was just pretending to be weak, but there was nothing I could do. Wen Qing rushed over after hearing the noise. When she saw Zhang Chuchu kneeling in front of me, she immediately helped her up. "You are the co-wife, so you don't need to treat her like a wife or a concubine." After that, she glared at me again. "Liang Haining, take back those little tricks you used to bully people in the inner courtyard of your mansion." My knuckles turned white from holding the teacup tightly. Before I could explain, the child started crying and said to Wen Qing, "Daddy, your wife bullied me and my mother and made us kneel down and kowtow to her. Now that you have a wife, do you no longer want me and my mother?" Wen Qing bent down and picked him up, coaxing him gently. "How could Daddy not want you? The 3 of us are a family, and Daddy will always be on your side." I stood up straight and said angrily, "Wen Qing, it was Zhang Chuchu who knelt down with me herself. What does it have to do with me?" Wen Qing's face turned cold, and when he was about to say something, Zhang Chuchu beside him pulled his sleeve to stop him. "Husband, it's just kneeling, it's nothing." At this point, I completely understood Zhang Chuchu's strategy of using the weak to bully the strong. I guess no matter how much I say, Wen Qing won't believe it. When Zhang Chuchu left holding Wen Qing's arm, Wenyu, who was being held by Wen Qing, turned around and made a provocative face at me. 04. On the second day, Zhang Chuchu came to serve tea to me and Madam Wen as usual. However, it was a full half-hour later before she came back. "Oh, mother and sister, I'm so sorry that Chuchu overslept today." She was wearing a light yellow shirt and a white jade hairpin, like a bunch of fresh winter jasmine flowers. Madam Wen's face was not looking good. As expected, they are from the market. Without even a hint of etiquette, they are late even for serving tea. Zhang Chuchu half knelt on the ground, her face red as blood. "Mother, it was the Marquis who insisted on making trouble for me yesterday. I've been keeping this in mind, and came here today to serve tea to my mother and sister, but the Marquis insisted that I could have sex after 3 months of pregnancy. He tortured me all night, and that is why I could not get up." Everyone present knew exactly who Zhang Chuchu was talking to. Old Madam Wen saw that I was not in a good mood and angrily scolded Zhang Chuchu, "You are such a prostitute." Zhang Chuchu sobbed a few times in grievance, and then hurriedly took out a poem from her clothes and handed it to old Madam Wen. "Mother, this is a new poem written by Uyghur. He said that he hopes that Grandma can live a long life." Mrs. Wen took a look and her expression softened a lot. Okay, you're still pregnant, so stop kneeling. Zhang Chuchu stood up with a meek look on her face, took out a string of Buddhist beads from somewhere and handed it to Madame Wen. Mother, this is a little gift from my child. Madame Wen looked at the Buddhist beads in amazement and couldn't help stroking them. This is sandalwood, which is worth a fortune in the whole Bianjing. It seems that you have put a lot of thought into it. As they were talking, the two of them talked about worshipping Buddha again. Seeing that Zhang Chuchu could also talk about it, Old Lady Wen immediately took his hand and started chatting with him. I sat alone and took a sip of tea that had long gone cold. I could clearly feel that the fire deep in my heart was gradually extinguished. 05. In the blink of an eye, it was the Spring Festival, and the city of Bianjing was decorated with lanterns and ribbons everywhere, becoming extremely lively. The servants of the Marquis's mansion also carried ladders and hung up red lanterns. I looked at the big red lanterns from the side and felt a little happy. At the side, the maid Xiao Kai handed me a lucky knot and said with a smile, I made this for you. I hope you will be happy every day and everything will go well in the future. I looked at the exquisite and unique auspicious knot in my hand and exclaimed, Xiao Kai, you can actually make auspicious knots. Xiao Kai turned her face away proudly. Girl, Xiao Kai is very smart. Looking at her smug look, I couldn't help but tickle her itch like I did when we were little. The two of them started running and fighting in the yard. But I forgot that there was new snow yesterday, and it was icy. My foot slipped, and I fell on my butt. Xiao Kai screamed and came to help me, but she couldn't stop laughing. I pinched her face in anger, but she was busy dodging and lost her balance, so she fell to the ground. So the two of them finished their fight and lay down in the snow. Snowflakes were falling all over the sky. I rested my head on my arms and looked at the stars in the sky, and a long-lost sense of peace arose in my heart. Until Xiao Kai put her mouth close to my ear and whispered, Madam, I don't know when the Marquis will come. He is now standing under the plum tree in our courtyard. I was stunned for a moment and turned my head stiffly. Sure enough, under the red plum tree, Wen Qing was standing tall in a black robe with a green jade waist pendant hanging from her belt. He didn't know how long he stood there, and even a thin layer of snow fell on his shoulders. When he suddenly looked into my eyes, he was startled and quickly turned his face away. I suddenly flipped up from the ground. I don't know if it was my illusion, but the corners of Wen Qing's mouth slightly curled up. Xiao Kai was busy brushing the snow off my clothes. I lowered my voice and asked, Doesn't he usually go to Zhang Chuchu's place? Why did he come here suddenly? Today is the Spring Festival. According to the rules, the Marquis should stay at the Madam's place today. I nodded thoughtfully, but my heart was not as happy as usual. I actually felt a little irritated. 06. When they got into the room, Wen Qing took off her outer shirt, put on only her undershirt, and lay down on the bed. I sat in front of the bronze mirror, taking off my pearl hairpins, and chatted with him in a random manner. Actually, it's okay for you to stay at Wanhua Pavilion tonight. Wen Qing sat up from the bed and looked at me leisurely. Madam, are you playing hard to get with me? I looked out the window speechlessly. After blowing out the red candles, I lay down beside him somewhat awkwardly. In the darkness, a strong arm gently grasped my waist, and then Wen Qing pressed me under him. He placed his lips on my ear and blew gently. Why didn't I realize before that my wife is so beautiful? My nostrils are filled with the refreshing scent of plum blossoms. Even the temperature on my face rose a lot. He intertwined our fingers and enticed me to respond to him. There was a rustling sound of snow outside, but inside the house there was an enchanting spring scene. Even though I have been keeping a low profile and watching him these days, I can't help but love him at this moment. As they were enjoying themselves on the bed, there was a knock on the door. Wen Qing asked in a hoarse voice, What? A drop of sweat from his forehead dripped down his straight nose and onto my chin. The person outside the house replied, Master Ho, Miss Zhang said she has a pain in her chest. When Zhang Chuchu was mentioned, Wen Qing replied impatiently, If you have a heartache, go get a doctor. What do you want me to do? Having said that, he continued to lower himself. Less than half an hour later, there was another knock on the door. Master Ho, Miss Zhang said that brother Yu had a high fever in the middle of the night. Please go and check on him. Wen Qing was stunned for a moment, and when he looked at me under him, a hint of guilt welled up in his eyes. I knew what he meant, so I raised my hand and gently pushed him aside, then turned around and said, "If you want to go, go ahead." Wen Qing quickly put on her clothes and comforted me. "Don't be angry. I'll just take a look and be back soon." He opened the door and the cold wind from outside blew in, and my eyes instantly became clear again. Even the tears that were shed dried up in an instant. That night, Wen Qing did not come back until dawn. 07. The next day, Xiao Kai came running over in a hurry. "Madam, something bad has happened. The girl next door had a miscarriage." I paused at the hand that was painting eyebrows in the bronze mirror. What does it have to do with us? That Yuga insisted that his mother had a miscarriage because she drank the bird's nest we sent her. A hint of coldness flashed across my eyes. It seems that Miss Zhang can't sit still any longer. In that case, there's no need for me to tolerate her anymore. When I rushed to the moon-watching pavilion, the people inside were in chaos. Zhang Chuchu, who was wearing plain clothes, leaned on Wen Qing's arms and cried nonstop. When she saw me, she asked with a sad face, "Sister, since I came to the mansion, I have never fought with you for anything, but why can't you tolerate me and Uyghur, and now you want to kill the child of Qing Lang and me with your own hands? You are trying to kill me." She covered her heart and spoke with tears in her eyes. Everyone here couldn't help but feel heartbroken for her when they heard the sound. After Wen Qing comforted Zhang Chuchu for a while, she looked at me coldly and said, "Liang Haining, I used to think you just liked me too much, so it was inevitable that you were a little jealous, which is understandable. But the child is innocent. How can you be so heartless?" Old Madam Wen was also sitting nearby, and when she looked at me, her expression lacked the usual kindness. "Mr. Wen, you are not only jealous and fierce, but also so vicious. You are a lady from a famous family, but you don't even have the demeanor of a mistress of the house. Now you have committed such a serious crime of harming your offspring. In that case, I think the power of housekeeper should be temporarily handed over to Miss Zhang." I was stunned for a moment, and it took me a long time to calm down and accept it. My mother-in-law, whom I respect wholeheartedly, and my husband, whom I have loved for so many years, told me that they would believe me. I was not even given a chance to explain myself. I was convicted based solely on Zhang Chuchu's one-sided statement. Looking at Wen Qing's profile, which was tense with anger, I suddenly felt so bored. As a result, the past 6 years that I have liked him have become so boring. I was originally the daughter of the Marquis of Yong'an and was doted on at home. I should have lived a life of luxury and carefreeness. But during the 6 years I was trapped in the inner house, I suppressed my temper and worked hard day after day to take care of everything in this mansion, big and small. I was just hoping that a husband who didn't love me would change his mind. I once thought that we were a perfect match, with our equally matched family backgrounds and a marriage contract personally arranged by the emperor. But I forgot that no matter how well matched we were, it couldn't defeat the fact that Wen Qing didn't love me. I think it was at this moment that I completely let go of Wen Qing. I closed my eyes, clenched my teeth, forced the tears into my eye sockets, and swallowed the sourness in my heart into my stomach. When he opened his eyes again, his eyes had regained their clarity. 08. I stood up and walked to Zhang Chuchu and asked coldly, "You said you had a miscarriage because you drank the bird's nest I sent you?" Zhang Chuchu turned away with tears in her eyes, looking like she had suffered a great injustice and didn't want to talk to me anymore. Wen Qing frowned. "Chuchu is tired. You are not welcome here. Please leave." I couldn't help but raise my voice. Why should I leave? If I made a mistake, I will admit it, but if anyone wants to put the blame on me today, I will pry her mouth open and make her swallow it. Wen Qing was stunned for a moment, opened his mouth, but in the end said nothing. Zhang Chuchu's face turned pale, and she pointed at me and said, "Get out of here. I don't want to talk to the murderer who killed my child." I looked her straight in the eye and said word by word, "You know who killed your child." Having said that, I ignored her reaction and gave instructions to my servants. Someone, ask the kitchen staff to hand over all of Zhang Xiaonyang's dietary records before her miscarriage. The head chef came in quickly and immediately presented the dietary record. He bowed and reported to Wen Qinghui. "My lord, after Madame Zhang became pregnant, our kitchen staff paid special attention to her 3 meals a day and specially instructed people to keep records. The kitchen staff also made light meals according to the recipes, which are good for the pregnancy and nothing will go wrong." When Qing flipped through a few pages and heard the supervisor pointing to yesterday's date on the notebook and saying, "Last night, our kitchen only cooked the bird's nest sent by the First Lady, and then Mrs. Zhang had a miscarriage." Wen Qing's face grew darker as he listened, until he finally threw the booklet recording Zhang Chuchu's diet in my face and said angrily, "Look for yourself. Now, the evidence is right in front of you. Chuchu had a miscarriage because she ate the bird's nest you ordered someone to send her. What else do you have to say?" He used quite a bit of force and it hit the bridge of my nose so hard that blood oozed out. Xiao Kai wiped it for me with a handkerchief with red eyes. I turned to look at the manager in the kitchen. "Have you tried silver needles on bird's nest?" The butler shook his head and whispered, "Because it was sent by you, madam, we will." Madam Wen sneered, "Don't blame the butler. It's hard to guard against thieves in the house." "It's just pitiful." Chuchu thanks mother for making the decision for me. Good boy, good boy." I sneered in my heart, took off the silver hairpin on my head and asked the supervisor, "Can you take some samples of the bird's nest?" "Yes, it is." "Butler, please take me to the kitchen." 09. A group of people walked towards the kitchen in a mighty manner. Zhang Chuchu did not follow because she had just suffered a miscarriage and was not feeling well. The bird's nest I tested with the pearl pin did not turn black. I muttered to myself, "It doesn't look like it's poisonous." Wen Qing watched from the side and said coldly, "How long are you going to finish this play?" I turned a deaf ear to his words and turned around to look around the kitchen. With just one glance, I immediately discovered the difference. The iron ore resources around the country are abundant, and now even ordinary people can afford iron pots. Therefore, the ceramic pot in the back kitchen is particularly eye-catching. I narrowed my eyes and asked, "Which pot did you use to make bird's nest for Zhang Xiaonyang yesterday?" Sure enough, the supervisor pointed at the ceramic pot. Mrs. Zhang specifically asked the kitchen staff to use a clay pot to cook the bird's nest, saying that it would be more fragrant this way. I turned to look at Mr. Wen and old Madam Wen. If I saw it right, Miss Zhang has a lot of rashes on her neck and arms, right? Wen Qing was stunned for a moment. At this moment, even if he was a fool, he could remember the twists and turns here. He said in a daze, "Chu is allergic to the glaze in the pottery pot. She once said that when she was a child, she accidentally ate porridge cooked in a pottery pot. She had abdominal cramps in the middle of the night, a high fever, and many rashes on her body." Madam Wen was so shocked that she broke the jade ring on her hand. When I returned to Wangyue Pavilion, I ran into Wen Yu, who was rushing towards me as soon as I entered the door. He grabbed my sleeve tightly and kicked me with his hands and feet. "You bad woman, you dare to hurt my mother, I will beat you to death." He used all his strength, and even though I was just a child, I got a lot of bruises on my body. Just as someone stepped forward to stop me, I slapped him to the ground with my backhand. "Don't think I don't know who has instigated you to target me. Today, I won't argue with you, because you are still a child. But I also tell you clearly that I don't even want to be your mother to someone like you who has average qualifications and a bad character. So don't be afraid. I will snatch you away from your mother. Because I think you're stupid." Wen Yu's face suddenly became swollen, and he lay on the ground in a daze until Zhang Chuchu, who was lying on the bed, gave him a sharp look. Only then did he remember the tricks he used in the past, and he ran to Wen Qing and old Madam Wen and burst into tears. Wen Qing looked at me with a barely perceptible sense of guilt in his eyes, and then he looked at Wen Yu again. He frowned subconsciously. "No matter what, he is still a child. You are too harsh." Old Madam Wen looked at me with complicated eyes, then at Zhang Chuchu, and finally said that she was tired and left. Wen Qing stayed behind to smooth things over, saying, "It was just a misunderstanding." I couldn't help but sneer. When I was judged by you guys just now, no one told me that I could just use a misunderstanding as an excuse. Having said that, I just turned around and left.
10.
Wen Qing ignored Zhang Chuchu for many days. Today he came to me again with a collection of poems. "I asked someone to find this for you. You can read it to relieve your boredom when you are bored." I glanced at it casually and said indifferently, "I don't like Li Houju's poems." Wen Qing was stunned for a moment, and when she saw the poetry collections written by Li Sanzho that were placed within her reach in my room, she realized that he had ignored me and knew nothing about me during the days since I got married. He unnaturally rolled up the book Songs of the Two Southern Tang Emperors and put it behind his back, saying somewhat awkwardly, "I am just a rough man who knows how to fight. I don't know as much as my wife." I snorted in my heart and said nothing more. Everyone in the entire Bianjing city knew that before Wen Qing gave up his literary career to pursue a military career, he ranked among the top 10 in the imperial examination. At that time, his talent in both civil and military affairs was one of the reasons why I still admired him in the imperial court. I knew everything about him, but he never really knew me. Well, after all these years, I have finally given up on my career. After lunch, someone outside the mansion came to announce that someone had arrived at the palace. It was Eunuch Li, who was beside the Queen Mother. He looked at me with a kind smile and said, "Madam Wen presented the painting of 100 birds paying homage to the Queen Mother at her birthday banquet a few days ago. She loved it very much. Now, Lord Marquis and Lady Wen, pack up and go with me to the palace to receive the reward." Wen Qing and I thanked him, and Eunuch Li smiled at old Madam Wen and said, "Old Madam, you have found a great wife for your son." Madam Wen on the side burst into laughter. "That's right. Our Haning is virtuous and talented, and she is well known throughout the capital." Having said that, he wanted to hold my hand. I dodged without leaving a trace, and Madam Wen's hand froze in midair in an instant. Zhang Chuchu on the side stared at me with a hint of jealousy. After changing clothes with Wen Qing and walking out of the mansion, I looked back at the plaque on the mansion. I took another look at the continuous red tiles on the roof. I exhaled heavily, then walked lightly towards the sedan. When getting on the carriage, Wen Qing wanted to lend me a hand, but I simply lifted up the hem of my skirt, avoided his hand, and got directly into the carriage. We looked at each other in silence in the carriage. He tried to find topics to talk about several times, but I closed my eyes and pretended to be resting and agreed perfunctorily. 11. After arriving at the Empress Dowager's chamber, Wen Qing was left in the front hall of the main hall. In the bedroom, I sat on the Queen Mother's bed and chatted with her. As she was talking, she lifted a strand of hair behind my ear, her eyes full of uncontrollable love. "When you were little, you were a naughty kid, either knocking over the vases in my room or ruining my clothes." I smiled shyly and leaned on her shoulder affectionately. "It's all because you love me." The Queen Mother smiled comfortably and said, "In the blink of an eye, you have grown up so much, and I am old too. But seeing you children get married and start your own families, my life has not been lived in vain." "Oh, tell me what you want as a reward." At the birthday banquet, all kinds of rare treasures were sent to my palace like water. But those were things that could be bought with gold and silver. I have lived in the palace all my life, and I have no interest in these things anymore. Only the painting of 100 birds paying homage to the phoenix that you embroidered with your own hands is my favorite. The embroidery is exquisite, and the stitches are complex and delicate. It can be seen that you put a lot of thought into it. Your filial piety, to me, is pure." I thought for a moment, then stood up and knelt in front of the Queen Mother. "Please, Queen Mother, give me a copy of the divorce agreement between me and Lord Wen." The Queen Mother was surprised and said, "I have seen clearly that you have liked Wen Qing for so many years. I think that you waited at the palace gate every day just to see him when he left the court. This matter is known to everyone in the court. Now you want to ask him for a divorce letter?" Tears blurred my vision. I seemed to see the girl who looked at her lover with a blushing face many years ago. Wen Qing was a man of both literary and military talents and became famous at a young age. Someone even wrote a poem for him. A young man riding a horse leans on a sloping bridge, with red sleeves waving all over the building. I was once one of his many admirers. In order to get his attention, I spent every day at the racecourse, practicing my ball skills and horse riding skills. Even though he broke his leg and his hand was bleeding from being rubbed by the rope, he never thought of giving up. Later, just to have a few more words with him, I studied poetry by the light of an oil lamp. After marrying him, I dared not slack off at all. I took good care of his daily life and arranged everything in the house for him. I just hope he can give me a look, that would be enough. But despite my love for him, I have been worn out by his indifference over the years. Finally, the Queen Mother just sighed and said, forget it, forget it. As long as you don't regret it, I will do as you wish.
12.
As soon as I left the palace, the news that I had divorced Wen Qing spread throughout the streets and alleys of the capital. After coming out of the Empress Dowager's palace, I didn't wait for Wen Qing, but went straight back to the Liang family. He only ordered someone to send the divorce letter back. That night, Wen Qing stood in front of my house all night until the third day when he fainted from exhaustion and was sent back to the Wen mansion. Later, it was heard that after Zhang Chuchu took over the power of housekeeper in the mansion, he tampered with the account books and embezzled a lot of money to subsidize his mother's family. When old Madam Wen discovered that the family was spending more than it was earning, she became so angry that she fell seriously ill. After a long pause, she immediately asked Wen Qing to write her a letter of divorce and drove her out of the Wen mansion. Half a month later, Madam Wen came to the Liang mansion on the pretext of visiting my grandmother. At that time, I was peeling tangerines for my grandmother. When he looked up and saw her, he just said politely, "Hello, Madam Wen." After she heard this, her eyes suddenly turned red and she called me tremblingly, "Inga, mother is sorry for you." I paused while peeling the tangerines. "Madam Wen, now that Wen Qing and I are divorced, what kind of mother are you to me?" Old Madam Wen's face turned pale, and she walked up to me, wanting to say something to me. I bowed to my grandmother and said, "Grandma, I'll take my leave now." Before leaving, I straightened my back and said coldly to Madam Wen, "Madam Wen, do you remember that when Marquis Wen passed away due to illness, you were so grief-stricken that you stayed in bed for several days? Even the imperial physician said at the time that you would not survive the winter. Later, I traveled far and wide to find ancient remedies and folk prescriptions for you. I mixed my own blood with the medicine and fed it to you day after day while you were unconscious in bed. In the end, I brought you back from the brink of death. After that, in order to reduce your burden, I took over all the complicated affairs of the family in the mansion and took good care of you. I regard you as my biological mother. I always feel that no matter what happens between me and Wen Qing, you still have some affection for me. But how did you treat me? Just because of a few provocations from Zhang Chuchu, you became suspicious of me and even wanted to give up my power as housekeeper to Zhang Chuchu. People are all made of flesh and blood. We in the Liang family don't have any extra food to prepare for you today. Please go back early," I said, and Mrs. Wen stood there in a daze, as if she had aged 10 years in an instant. I didn't look back, nor did I see her looking at my back, filled with regret. 13. In late spring, after Wen Qing returned from the war, he had not yet had time to take off his armor and enter the palace to report his position to the emperor. He hurried to Liang's house. "Just because today is the day I get married." At that time, I was wearing my wedding attire and getting dressed. He climbed in from somewhere over the wall, covered in blood, and scared everyone in the room away. A maid bravely stepped forward and asked him to step back. Wen Qing lowered her eyes for a moment, then raised her head with tears in her eyes. "Hey Niang, do you really want to marry someone else? You have liked us for so many years. Why don't you give me another chance to make it up to you?" I rolled up my sleeves, looked at him, and said in a decisive tone, "Because I don't like you anymore. Since you ignored me and treated me unfairly because of Zhang Chuchu, I no longer like you." He finally regretted it. She trembled and said, "Back then, Zhang Chuchu disguised herself as a man and followed my army. Later, she used aphrodisiac incense to seduce me in my tent. I didn't like her at first. I sneered. So General Wen was lonely during the march and didn't control his lower body, so he got caught? Wen Qing pursed her lips and said, when she returned to the capital, she told me that she was pregnant. Haining, I can't just ignore it. I lowered my eyes and said distantly, this is your past. I don't care. I raised my eyes and shot my cold gaze straight at him. But you should never, ever, lie to me when we're discussing marriage. Before I married you, you never told me about Zhang Chuchu because you also believed that I was wise and generous and thought that as long as I married you, I would be able to tolerate you, that mistress and that child, right? As I pressed on with my questions, Wen Qing opened his mouth, and after 1,000 words, he uttered a bitter and hoarse word of apology. He said again, I don't know if you believe it or not, but I have actually been in love with you for a long time. A few years ago, every time I was on my way back from court, I would notice you hiding behind a stone pillar at the palace gate, secretly looking at me. Although I pretended not to care, I was very happy in my heart. Later, I found out that you were the daughter of the Marquis of Yong'an. I wanted to go to your house to propose marriage, but I didn't expect your father would ask the emperor to grant you a marriage first. I was so happy that I couldn't sleep that night. I didn't say anything. All kinds of thoughts flashed through my mind, and then I calmed down. Wen Qing held her head in a somewhat dejected manner. After we got married, Zhang Chuchu would always tell me every day that she gave birth to a son for me, and that she gave up her reputation to be with me, and became my mistress for 3 years, and even severed ties with her family. Whenever I want to be close to you, I always think of her words. I was afraid that I would become the ungrateful person she described, so I didn't dare to face my own heart. I raised my head with tears in my eyes. Do you know that you actually let down 2 women who truly loved you? Wen Qing stared at me blankly, her eyes full of bitterness. I was young at the time and could not resist the temptation. It was my fault. All I ask is, just as he was about to step forward, a cold voice suddenly interrupted him from behind. General Wen, please respect yourself. It's Wei Qiyuan. He stood behind me with a fierce look in his eyes. Wen Qing froze in place and gave a bitter smile. So the person you are going to marry is the commander of the Ministry of Justice. I took Wei Qiyuan's arm and said, today is my wedding day. General Wen, please leave through the back door. Wen Qing's face was as pale as paper. He used the last bit of his strength to straighten his waist and staggered away. 14. Wei Qiyuan and I were the only ones left in the room. I was a little surprised and asked, why are you here? He folded his arms and glanced at me. I'm afraid if I don't come, my wife will be kidnapped. I won't even know where to cry at the grave when the time comes. I couldn't help laughing. Is this arrogant person in front of me the commander of the Imperial City Division who is deep-minded and in charge of the hell? On that day, Wei Qiyuan came to the Liang mansion to propose marriage, and everyone in the group was talking about how well he would treat me after marriage. Only he, wearing a purple court robe, bowed to me and said, my parents died early. If Miss Liang marries me, I won't have to worry about getting along with my parents-in-law. Besides, I am busy with official duties. Not only do I have to go out early and come back late every day, but sometimes I can't go home for several months because of official inspections. The most important thing is that the salary is high. There are thousands of acres of fertile land and countless manors and mansions under my name. These are all up to Miss Liang. I will never ask. After he finished speaking, my mother looked at me awkwardly and whispered to me, son, Commander Wei is so busy. I don't think he is a good match for me. Mother, you're stupid. Lord Wei has land and houses. He is not only busy with official duties, but his parents died early. Most importantly, he is handsome. If I marry him, I will have a wonderful life. So, I slammed the table and said, Sir Wei, please come and propose marriage tomorrow. He smiled and said, everything has been prepared today. Several hundred carriages carrying betrothal gifts are parked outside the palace. Wen Qing also came to my wedding with Wei Qiyuan. At the end of the meal, Everyone was talking and laughing, but he only ate 2 bites and then left with an excuse. Seeing that he was drunk, everyone asked a waiter to take him back. But the errand boy said that General Wen had collapsed outside the Liang family mansion and refused to leave no matter how much they tried to drive him away. Just crying and calling my name. Hey Ning, I shouldn't have missed you like this. I shouldn't have. I shouldn't have. 15. After marriage, Wei Qiwan and I treated each other with respect. He is in charge of the outside world, and I am in charge of the inside world. When I have nothing to do, I go around the farm and check the account books. These are things I like to do, and I don't feel tired. In this huge mansion, I am the only one living there except for my wife and maids, so it is inevitably very lonely. So I repeatedly advised him to take in a few more concubines to liven up the family, but he would not take in any more except leaving with a cold face and in anger. I thought he was baffled, and Xiao Kai looked at me and sighed. Miss, why can't you guess what your aunt is thinking? A man's heart is like a needle in the sea. Forget it, forget it. Let's just do whatever he says. Anyway, I live a comfortable and happy life, and that's enough. Over.